Bitcoin is about to hit its all-time high. It's currently at $63,000 per Bitcoin. In Philippine pesos, we've already hit and passed the all-time high at 3.5 million pesos. Ngayon, pag-uusapan natin bakit itong Bitcoin cycle na to ay iba kumpara sa lahat ng Bitcoin cycles. Now, I'm gonna be reading through my notes kasi ang daming information that I need to pass on to you guys on why this Bitcoin cycle is different from all other cycles and what can we expect coming up in the next few months. Okay, umpisahan na natin to. This cycle is different from all other Bitcoin cycles because of a few things. Notably, yung Bitcoin ETFs. And that played a big part on why the cycle is moving the way it is right now. Now, let's look at the Bitcoin chart and start with this one. When you look at the Bitcoin chart, mapapansin mo dito that in every cycle after the halving, that's when the new all-time high is actually reached. Kung makikita mo dito, no, it never reaches the previous all-time high until months after the halving. And then after that, it'll surpass it to create a new all-time high, usually between 12 to 18 months after the halving. And that happened already in the previous 3 cycles. This cycle is different because if you look at it, we are not even at the halving, and yet yung Bitcoin price is only $5,000 away from the previous all-time high. And as you can see here, just eyeballing this Bitcoin chart, it looks like it's about to go or has already gone parabolic. Now, why is the Bitcoin price action doing this right now? Well, notably, as I said, it's because of the Bitcoin ETFs. The Bitcoin ETFs allows institutions to be able to buy Bitcoins on behalf of all their clients. That is the main difference. Ngayon, para maintindihan talaga natin kung anong impact na itong mga ETF sa Bitcoin, pwede natin tignan yung effect ng ETF sa gold. And as you can see from this gold chart, prior to the gold approval of the ETF on November 18, 2004, gold's price was hovering pretty much around the $300 to $500 mark. Then, when the ETF was approved, you will notice it suddenly went parabolic. From 2005 all the way to its all-time high in 2011 at a price of around $2,400 for gold. That's a 5x increase from the price of gold prior to the ETF approval. And it took 7 years for gold to be able to hit its all-time high. And the parabolic move was spread out in a 7-year period. Now, let's look at the Bitcoin chart and when the ETF was approved. The Bitcoin ETF was approved in January 10. And what happened ever since? At that time, the price of Bitcoin was at 45,000. Today, we're sitting at a over 30% increase at $63,000 per Bitcoin. And that took only less than 2 months. Now, if you look at this price action, it's very similar to gold, except it's like supercharged compared to gold. Because if you look at gold's parabolic rise, it took 7 years of this parabolic rise to happen. Bitcoin, if you look at it, is taking place within a couple of months. Now, from where it looks, where do you think is it going to go in the next 2 years? Kasi because of this ETF approval, meron tayong what they call a demand shock. And there's a supply shock that's upcoming in the next few months. It's the Bitcoin halving that we all know about. Ngayon, kung di mo pa alam kung ano yan, it's basically cutting the flow of Bitcoin by half, which happens every 4 years. And as we've seen with previous cycles, a Bitcoin supply shock will push the price up. I want you to look at this. Currently, there are 900 Bitcoins that are being mined on a daily basis. Now, after the halving, that's going to be cut in half to only 450 Bitcoins mined per day. Pero look at the demand. Just the other day, over 11,000 Bitcoins were taken out of circulation. Add to that over 70% of all Bitcoin holders have not sold in over a year. Plus, if you look at this chart, it looks like the OTC desk, which is how most institutions buy Bitcoin, has dropped to an all-time low in the last 6 years. When you add up all these things that you're seeing right now, it's not far-fetched to think that Bitcoin can easily do $100 to $200 to even $500,000 per Bitcoin. It's not even a question of if anymore, in my view. It's a question of when. Okay, let's move on and talk about other fun facts about Bitcoin in this cycle. Alam mo ba, since the ETF of Bitcoin was approved, there was an outflow of gold ETFs. Now, I'm not saying that there's a hard correlation between the outflow of gold ETFs versus the inflow of Bitcoin ETFs, pero you can't really avoid making that comparison. Now, let's also look at another fun fact here. Ngayon, everyone was talking about how Grayscale, if you guys don't know about Grayscale, they held about $30 billion in Bitcoin prior to the ETFs. And then they converted it into an ETF when they did. And that allowed all the other asset managers to be able to buy Bitcoin. They were the most expensive asset manager, charging 1.5% to manage the ETF fund compared to BlackRock and everyone else, which were charging like 0.5% to 0.3%. Kaya ang daming outflows from the Grayscale ETF that other ETF asset managers were buying up. And if you look at this chart right here, you can see that the gray part is Grayscale that's selling all their ETFs. And as you can see there, it's actually plateauing already. Pero pag makita mo, all other ETF providers, with the black part being BlackRock, which is the biggest one, and Fidelity also being another big one, is eating up all those available Bitcoins. And they're actually accelerating their purchases. Now, if you look at it in US dollars, you'll see here that the Grayscale ETF has actually sold or outflowed $7.8 billion already. Tignan mo magkano binili ng BlackRock since the approval of the ETF. They bought over $7.1 billion in Bitcoins. Now, add that up with the others from Fidelity at $4.7 billion and Bitwise at $1.1 billion, ARK Invest with $1.5 billion, and everyone else. Then you get a total positive outflow of $7.4 billion in Bitcoin. And just the other day, BlackRock set a new record in terms of daily purchases of Bitcoin at $612 million of Bitcoin bought in a single day. And if you think that metric is already insane, here's another metric that I read on X. Did you know that the Bitcoin ETF of BlackRock, which is Bybit, makes up only 0.2% of BlackRock's ETF lineup, yet it accounts for 42% of its net flows this year. Imagine mo, Bitcoin's ETF has only a 0.2% exposure in terms of BlackRock's total assets managed. 42% of their activity was in Bitcoin. And from what I've been hearing, it looks like BlackRock wants to at least have 2% of all assets under management in Bitcoin. And if you look at Fidelity's ETF lineup, it's currently at 2% of their total assets under management, but yet it commands a 64% of all flows in all their ETFs this year. At the rate it's going, Bitcoin ETFs is now at $38 billion. Now, compared to gold's ETF, which is at $90 billion, which took 7 years to be able to get to $90 billion, how fast do you think Bitcoin is going to get from $38 billion to surpass gold's $90 billion? Okay, another fun fact. Did you know currently at $1.1 trillion market cap, Bitcoin is the fourth largest currency in the world, with the US being the largest currency at $5.82 trillion, tapos euros at $5.62 trillion, then China at $5.5 trillion, and Japan at $4.77 trillion. Now, in my opinion, it's a foregone conclusion. It is inevitable. Bitcoin will eventually become the largest currency in the world. And I'll make a bold prediction to say that I think Bitcoin will become the global reserve currency. And that will back up all other currencies in the world. And I know that a lot of you are probably looking at Bitcoin from the price appreciation perspective. I actually look at it a little bit differently, where I look at everything priced in Bitcoin. And if you look at everything when it's priced in Bitcoin, everything is going down in value. Everything is becoming cheaper. That means that the power of your money, if it's in Bitcoin, is actually appreciating in value. Or you can look at it the way I do, where everything is just losing value compared to Bitcoin. And if you look at all these fun facts, that's why this Bitcoin cycle is different from all other Bitcoin cycles. At hindi ko na nga tinitignan yung mga previous cycles and charts because the way I look at it right now, we are in price discovery. Who knows how high this is going to go and how fast it's going to happen. All I can tell you is this. Make sure to buy your Bitcoins now because even at this price, mura pa yan. As a matter of fact, I just bought Bitcoin recently at under $60,000 per Bitcoin. And I highly recommend you do the same because this is probably going to be the last time you're going to be able to buy Bitcoin at these prices. What do you guys think? You agree or disagree? Did I miss any points? Or is there anything that you want to add to this discussion? Feel free to write your comments in the comment section below. At pag nagustuhan nyo itong mga ganitong video, please subscribe and like my channel. And I look forward to seeing you guys on my next video.